everyone to this week's Are We Nearly There Yet conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Sonia. We're so grateful to have you with us in this space. I'm the families lead at Kerith Community Church, and I'm also mum to 4 children. So I'm very much on the journey as a parent myself. And each week I have a conversation with someone different about that journey, a different aspect of their parenting and family life that they find themselves in. This week I chatted to Darren Teverson. Darren leads a men's group at Kerith Church called Who Let the Dads Out. We'll find out a little bit more about that. We're also going to have a conversation around men's mental health, something that historically maybe hasn't been something that has been talked about very much, but we want to be in a community that encourages these conversations, and hopefully you'll find it really interesting to listen to Darren today. Hey, so welcome to you, Darren, to the Are We Nearly There Yet podcast.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you for inviting me.
It's so good to have you with us. Why don't you tell people who maybe don't know who you are a little bit about yourself and tell us, who is family to you?
My name's Darren Teverson. I've been coming to Kerith for a while. I was raised in Shepperton in Middlesex. My mum and dad provided me with a really loving upbringing. My mum was a PA in a financial brokerage. My dad was a construction manager in the film and TV business. So He worked at Shepperton and Pinewood, basically building all the sets. I've got a brother, younger brother, Martin. He also comes to Kerith, and he lives in Warfield now, but he's got a job in a garden centre in Weybridge. And a very tight, loving family. I was brought up in a Church of England environment. We went to church typically on weddings and funerals and Christmas and Easter. So I wouldn't say it was a Christian family upbringing. I was brought up having an element of faith. I definitely personally had a belief that there was a God, and but that's really as far as I went in those days. Family now. I'm now with my wife Becky, who's been coming to Kerith for longer than I have, for about 14 years, I think.
So this is where you met? Did you meet at Kerith?
We didn't meet at Kerith. No, that's a story on its own, really. How I met my wife. Definitely a series of God incidences. I was a reluctant Christian, I suppose, at the start. I went on Alpha shortly after going to church for the first time in 2011. And at the Alpha weekend, I found faith and accepted Jesus into my life. And then that was on the Holy Spirit weekend. And shortly after that, I prayed a prayer. One of my first ever prayers, if I remember rightly. And that was one evening just before I went to bed. I recently joined a Christian dating site called christiancafe.com because I thought, why not? I'm going to meet some hopefully nice people. I had joined a few dating sites before then and met some very interesting people, but nothing that would have I could see any future with. So I gave christiancafe.com a try after being suggested onto that site by somebody at church. So I prayed a prayer this evening, and I prayed that somebody would contact me, and didn't really think much else of that. It was my first proper prayer on my own, and proper heartfelt prayer. And little did I know that very day in the morning, Becky, now my wife, was going to work, as she did, commuting from Bracknell into London. And on the train, her mobile bleeped, and it was her dad, and said, "I've been thinking, have you tried christiancafe.com, a dating site?" And Becky was like, "I can't believe my dad is trying to actually get involved in my love life." And so she kind of just dismissed it. But all the way through the day, she was getting these nudges. Maybe you should check this out. And so sitting on the train on the way home, she had another nudge. So she opened up the site and went and put in some details like Bracknell and Christian, just basically general searches, and I was the first person that came up on the top of that page. And Becky said that at that point she knew that that was the person that she was going to marry.
Wow.
So that evening, she went onto the site again after her dinner and tea and everything. And it happened to be about half an hour after I prayed my prayer, because I went to bed quite early in those days, not now. And so this was about half an hour afterwards. And so she logged on and just sent me a reply. She didn't have any picture. She didn't really have any details about herself. It was very limited, the amount of information that you could actually put onto this site if you contacted somebody. And she sent the email off. And so I woke up the next morning, and the first thing I did was checked for any emails, and there it was. And when I read her email, she was saying, please forgive me, I haven't got any picture. I promise I don't have two heads and scaly. Just, I just wanted to say hi. When I read that, I had that same feeling that this is the person that I'm going to marry.
Wow.
It was like a lightning bolt.
Really?
And we spent about 3 weeks, nearly every single night, for about 3 hours a day on the phone, talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, you know what, I think we ought to meet. So we met, and that was at I can't remember the name of the pub, but it's at Virginia Water. There's a pub just there. That's where we met for our first date.
The Wheat Sheaf?
And that's the one, the Wheat Sheaf, yeah. If you look at the front of the Wheat Sheaf, there's a window just as the front of the building steps back. There's a window there, and that is our window. That's where we met, sitting on some chairs just inside there. That's when you could go to a pub. And yeah, we had a chat, and it was like we knew each other for a long time. And yeah, and so we got together. I then proposed in 2012. We got married at Kerith in 2013, and then Gracie came along in September 2015. And yeah, and here we are. We still live in Bracknell, and yeah, I'm very much in love. And Gracie is just we are so blessed to have Gracie in our family. She is an absolute diamond. She is growing up already to be such a godly little girl, and she's just so precious to us.
Oh, I love that story. I wasn't planning on asking you how you got together, but I love hearing a story of that, and I love even more that you could so see God's hand weave through every single moment of that. I thought at one point you were going to say that first conversation, that first message from your wife was a proposal, but it wasn't. She didn't go there straight away.
Not straight away.
She felt the nudge from God, but she still exercised caution and wisdom at the same time. But
that's right.
Oh, wonderful. So you work outside of the home. Well, at the moment, everyone's that can work in the home is working inside their walls of their home. But tell us what you do for work, and because you also serve in the church as well. So tell us a little bit about what you do for work, and then also how you serve at Kerith.
Yeah, sure. So I have worked in health and safety for nearly 15 years now. I started my health and safety career when I worked at because I worked at Shepton and Pinewood Studios, very early days when my dad was there as well. So it was a bit of a family thing. I learned my health and safety foundations there. I ended up being group health and safety manager for Pinewood Group. So it was brilliant. I love films, and it was the best environment to ever work in. I got to meet everybody I wanted to meet. I saw films being filmed that I now sort of fixed in my memory as where I was at that time. And now I've after working in the likes of Sky TV and Royal Berkshire Hospital, and Wembley Stadium, 3M in Bracknell. Now I work for a company called Avetta, and we are a supply chain risk management company. So we take on the compliance side of things for contractors, for big companies who prefer to outsource the contractor management side of their business. And so I'm working at home. I have been since the 16th of March last year. It looks as though I'm going to be working at home for the foreseeable future, at least. So much so that we're actually having a garden office built, because I can't really see us going back to a physical office permanently. I think it's going to be for the same with a lot of companies when like post-COVID, that they're just going to look at their operations and take a view on whether or not it's actually necessary to have a permanent office facility. Yeah, I could do my job perfectly well at home. In fact, I'm actually more productive.
Yeah. And if we'll get on a little bit to this area of conversation a bit later, but if it produces a better work-life balance as well, especially people that were commuting, during the rat race, whether that's sat in their car for a while or on trains, or if it means that you can dip out of your office and see your family halfway through the day, or it's just beneficial, isn't it, to our well-being. But tell us a little bit about church as well. I know you serve a church in a particular area that we wanted to talk about today, so tell us a little bit about that.
I got properly into the serving side of things pretty much as soon as I came to Kerith full-time. Becky and I were on the reception team for a few years until we had Gracie. We even had Gracie at the back on Sunday mornings in her buggy, trying to sleep. I then moved into prison outreach network team, and so I joined them for a few years, and we went into the prisons every now and again, and local prisons, and we held Sunday service there, and we got to talk to the guys there, which was that was a blessing for me to be able to sit down and actually chat to these guys and just learn a bit about them, and it was a very special time, that. And now I co-lead Who Let the Dads Out, which is a toddler and preschooler group, kind of like Sparklers, or very much like Sparklers, but really aimed at dads and male carers. Before COVID, we did that the last Saturday of every month in Kerith, in the auditorium.
And you've had loads of dads and male carers come to that. Some of them have come to faith. Tell us a little bit about your passion behind starting that group.
So Gracie came along, and I just thought, I really want to do something with just me and her when the time comes, when it's okay for me to take her out just on my own, build those bonds that a dad and their son or daughter need to have. Obviously, working during the week, Saturdays were very precious, and I thought, okay, Saturday mornings is going to be my time with Gracie, not only for me to spend some time, quality time with her, but also to give Becky a bit of a break and get things that she wanted to do done. She's very keen runner, and at the time she wasn't able to go out running and do her that side of things. So it just gave her some space as well. So I loved it. We went to Reading shopping one day, and it was one of my first ever times taking her out. So we went on the train, and very comical experience going into Boots and into the family room in Boots because I needed to change Gracie. And I walked in there. There's me with the buggy and Gracie, the only guy in there. There was about 6 mums, all sort of like, they all must have all known each other, or they just said hello to each other. And so they were all talking, and everything just just went quiet when I walked in the room. It was hilarious. And I knew there were 6 pairs of eyes on me for the whole time I was in there watching what I was doing. I think they were thinking, oh, here we go. This is going to be funny. But I don't know what happened, but it was the easiest changing experience I had up till that point with Gracie. I was in and out within about 5 minutes, like a pro. And I just felt so proud of myself. It was the first time I had to change Gracie in public, as it were, like out on my own.
Well, apologies on behalf of mums everywhere for those judgy mums, because dads can do the same stuff just as well as mums can. So
yeah, I'm sure they weren't judging me, but that is how it felt to me. And I wanted to do something on a Saturday, and so what I thought of doing was getting in contact with some of the NCT group dads, and just suggest, well, why don't we all get together? We've all had our children now. We've all also had some time to sort of like get used to going out and stuff. Why don't we all meet? And in fact, why don't we go out for a walk every Saturday morning? Because I just wanted to get out, and I like fresh air and just being outside. So we decided to do that, and we regularly met up to about 10 dads we had doing walks, Virginia Water, Dinton Pastures, the Lookout. We just all met up. We went for a walk, maybe had like a coffee or breakfast roll and stuff. But the numbers dwindled when the weather changed. It got cold, and one Saturday morning it was raining. We were in the Lookout, walking in the woods in the rain, squelching in the mud. We thought, this isn't much fun now. And so I started looking for something to do inside, and that's when I found Who Let the Dads Out. It's a national initiative. It's now run under Care for the Family, and there's about just under 300 churches now, once a month, doing a Who Let the Dads Out dads group. It's kind of like the founder, Mark Chester, it's evolved from when it first started in 2003. It's kind of evolved into not a franchise, but basically churches are encouraged to start a Who Let the Dads Out group. They're given all of the training that you need and materials to start a group. You're given the logo, and then you're kind of left to your own devices. But what they said is the things that they would like you to keep is the fact that it's from a church setting it up, because they refer to the Bible a lot in their material that they send out. They refer to a verse in Malachi, turning the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. And also from Luke, I believe, preparing for family for God. And so that's how they kind of they base it. You're left completely to your own devices as how you present it. So I decided to go to Simon and Katrina to say, I'd like to do this at Kerith, because there's nothing around. There's no other group around. There was one in Early, there was one in Camberley, and there was one in Chertsey. So Bracknell had nothing, and so it's a massive catchment area. And straight away I thought, well, this is going to be great for supporting dads, which is very close to my heart, especially mental health side of things for new dads, because I had struggles after Gracie was born, and so I wanted to put this group together and use it to build a community of dads that support each other. And just before, March was our last group, just before lockdown happened, and we had 47 dads and 55 children, I think it was.
Amazing.
In the auditorium. We filled the auditorium with a bouncy castle, ride-on toys. We've got an inflatable racetrack for the ride-on toys. We've got Lego table, a reading table. We've got music playing, which is a very particularly chosen upbeat Christian praise and worship and Christian artists. So we chose not to have any secular music in there.
Okay.
But we don't make a big thing of it. So we're actually inviting like up to 47 dads so far. Most of those have never been to Kerith, and the majority of those people generally we find don't go to church. So this is a massive outreach opportunity for us as well. And so it's over the last 2.5, nearly 3 years that we've been running it. We've actually built a community which is now actually bearing fruit. We've had a couple of the guys that have come along to one of our groups, went on Alpha a couple of years ago, and now they're both baptized. They're both very much involved in the church. So this group is now actually bearing fruit spiritually as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the stories that have come out of it, and all because of your vision and heart for creating that space. You mentioned, Darren, about having a real passion for men's mental health. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where that passion comes from, but then like what I'm really interested in, like shining a light on that area, because I think it's an area where there's been a real movement in previous years, like maternal mental health, like post and prenatal, with mental health in women. And I think we're starting to talk more about men, but maybe not quite as much. So it'd be really great to shine a light on that for the rest of our conversation. Tell us a little bit about your journey with that and take it from there.
Yeah, so when Becky was pregnant, I was very much involved. I wanted to be involved in everything, and I even down to at night before we went to sleep, I always read the bump, as we called it, a story. And so there was me, sort of like went down to the bump and read the bumper story every night. And so I wanted to continue that involvement all the way through when Becky went into labour and we went to Frimley. I was very much involved in the whole thing. Obviously, we went to NCT group, and also we went to a private antenatal class, and that kind of prepares you a bit, but it doesn't really prepare you, I think, fully. Especially this is, if this is your first child and you really want to be there and you just have no idea what's about to happen. And so there was I thinking, I can handle this. I'm going to support Becky. I'm going to be there every single second. And I was a little bit more than I anticipated. So I thought, when Becky started pushing and the sort of like it was all happening, I thought, oh, other people were going to probably come in at this moment. So it was me and the lady that was with us. I thought, oh, maybe other people will come in, because I was properly like being a second midwife. I was there. I was doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, yeah, carry on. Somebody will come in a minute, but no. Then there was a little bit of, we had a bit of complications, and that's when it kind of started turning into a little bit more than I was prepared for.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we found that Gracie was back to back, and which is why we had complications. Becky had to have 2 epidurals. The first one didn't work. And so I was suddenly sort of thrown into this situation where I was so scared for Becky, and I was so scared for our baby, and I was there like doing stuff that I never thought I would, seeing things that I'd never thought I would, because nothing prepared me for this.
No.
It's all very antenatal classes. It's all sort of like, here's your breathing, and
Yeah, but there's no two births are the same, are they? So how can you fully prepare? And if you're going for a more traumatic experience, which it sounds like yours was, then
yeah, it was very traumatic.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we just, both of us just reminded each other we need to involve God in this, and so we prayed that that God would sort this out. And then the midwife had called in the emergency team, because they thought that Becky was going to have to go in and have an emergency C-section. And they said, basically, if the baby doesn't turn around in 5 minutes, we're going to have to take your wife to the emergency theatre. And so we thought, right, we're going to involve God in this, which is, it's very easy not to remember to do that in that situation. So, and we prayed, and literally a minute after we prayed, it all started happening. The emergency team came into our room. Suddenly, 15 people were in the room.
Yeah.
And there was me. I was still very much there, holding Becky's hand, talking her through it like we planned, but also being very much at the business end. And then one of the senior team, I won't get into any details, but things happened at that end, and I witnessed a lot that I didn't think at the time really sort of affected me, because suddenly we had our baby, everything was okay. I just kind of, I think at the time, just completely blotted out everything else that I was seeing and hearing. We got home after quite a stressful time in the ward at Frimley, and there's no, everybody was just brilliant there. It was just quite stressful. Becky had to have a transfusion because her iron levels were low, which meant that she wasn't feeding properly, and so Gracie was very, very.
Is it jaundice?
Yeah. And Gracie was very upset, and she just didn't calm down, and so that was very stressful. But we got through it with the help of the lovely people at Frimley, and we got home. 10 days later, we found that Gracie had an abscess on the back.
Okay.
So we went back into Frimley, and we were then transferred to St George's in Tooting.
Yeah.
And we were there for about another 48 hours, I think, just under. So that was all very, very stressful as well. All the time, I was trying to hold everything together. I was trying to hold Becky's experience and recovery all together. Gracie as well, who was obviously very upset because not only the whole sort of experience in the hospital, but we didn't realise that this abscess was affecting her so much. It must have been really painful for her for a day or so before we noticed it. And I was holding everything together, and it wasn't until that all started sorting itself out that I allowed myself to release all of the things that I'd stored up. So Becky was diagnosed with postnatal depression as well, for obvious. I don't know how she went through what she went through, to be honest. And I was then later diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and so I sought counselling for that. Everything, I now look back on it, a much favourable way. That whole experience, I can talk about it now, and it's a lovely time. Even both Becky and I just see that time as such a lovely time, even though it was so emotionally draining. But I'm now very much an advocate of male mental health, especially for new dads.
Yeah.
And because I know that if I went through that, then there must be other people going through that all the time. And we didn't really get, as I say, the royal we for dads, I don't think we really get the support in that time, because nobody asked me obviously Becky did, but nobody else asked me, Darren, how are you?
Yeah. The focus is on
And
the
I just
mum.
wish, I just wish somebody asked me how I was, because I wasn't okay. And so the way I would like to actually just talk to somebody in that situation now is to say it's okay to say you're not okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold everything together.
Do you think if somebody had asked you, you'd have been honest and said?
Definitely.
You do,
because I was not
That's
okay.
Good. Yeah.
And one of the hardest things I've found in positive mental health is to admit that you're not okay. That's the hardest thing to do, because
it's so
as a
releasing.
guy, but as a guy, it's very easy to see that, and this is what the stigma is, that it's very easy to think that if you're not okay, that's a weakness.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness. You're stronger if you actually say that you are not okay and you go and seek help. And that is the biggest message that I can put through to anybody. And regardless of whether they're a new dad or just without children, just if you're not okay, say you're not okay and actually go and seek professional help, because that is the best thing you can do. And it changed everything for me by just admitting that I needed some support.
Because I think a lot of stigma, if there is still stigma around, is often self-imposed. Maybe it is that sometimes people deflect onto other people, but I think for a lot of people, they are too afraid to speak up and say, like you say, I'm not right, I need some help. Because they're concerned about what other people think. But the reality is most people's loved ones would just want to love them and support them, want them to be in the best, healthiest place they could be. It's self-imposed thinking that other people are going to judge you, or thinking that other people are going to think you're weak. Whereas actually, when it comes to it, majority of people was that your experience? Did you find that people, once you were open to say, look, I'm not okay, were the people around you loving and supportive in that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Becky, being a counsellor herself, was very aware that there was something not right. Once her, and I refer it to the spark in her eyes came back. When Becky came back, she realised that I was not okay. And so the support I had from her and the support I had from everyone at Kerith was just outstanding. I just felt as though I could just fall back on my church family, as well as my own family. So my mum was brilliant. Becky was amazing. And to this day, Becky says that I'm her rock, but it's the other way around. Becky's definitely my rock.
Yeah. And there's hope on the other side of it, isn't there? Like, you can get better.
Yeah.
If you have
definitely.
an episode, like with any physical, we separate the two, mental illness and physical illness, but actually your brain is part of your body. So it's all physical as well. And I think you can get better, just like if you sprain or break a wrist, that will heal in time. So will mental ill health. You will heal. There is always hope. Sometimes that healing is instant, as with our physical body, but sometimes it's prayer and it's talking therapy and it's medication, and it might look like lots of different things combined.
Definitely. Prayer, number one. Medication as well. I'm on medication for anxiety, but I also had high blood pressure, but that was historic. And now through medication and prayer, I'm now, well, actually the doctor the last time they tested me, I was apparently textbook.
Oh, wow.
And so it's being well managed by medication. I firmly believe that medication is here through God, and the skills of the scientists and the medical teams and doctors, nurses are all God-given. And so medication is something, for a Christian, is something that we shouldn't be thinking, that's not the way to go. Absolutely, medication is just as much of a godly gift than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you, Darren, that you and your team at Who Let the Dads Out create this space for men to gather with their children, and they've got opportunity to say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
to one another, or say, "Yeah, I'm fine. No, I'm not." Like that you're creating this space, and I know obviously the last few months creating that space has been challenging. You've taken it online, but there's still that community there, and at some point you will meet back physically again, and just to create that space for men and any men listening to this, or maybe ladies listening to this who have got a man in their life that they know need help, get them to listen to this. I'd also say to anyone that's listening who is maybe about to have their first baby, that all births are very different, and that this was Darren and Becky's experience of birth of Gracie.
Absolutely.
But I don't want anyone to be approaching their birth story with any fear, having heard what they've heard today, because
definitely not. It's very rare for there to be that sort of complication. Yeah. But I think it's important that these sort of rare that they are, these sort of situations are discussed, because it does prepare people just in case that does happen. That just put your faith in the medical team. They know exactly what they're doing. They've done this day in, day out, every day of the week. Just put your faith in God and the medical team that are looking after you. Yeah. And that's the only thing and best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I love that testimony that you two stopped in the middle of all that going on. You stopped to say, "Okay, God, help us out here." Because when things are slower paced, maybe we're able to do that more regularly. But in the midst of the moment, the trauma, everything that was going on, complications, you just stopped and leant on God, as well as say trust in the medical professionals who've seen.
Absolutely.
This is new to you, but they've seen it all before, haven't they? They've seen all these things. So
yeah. It's very interesting that we're just about to start the new, or we have just started the new wellbeing series at Kerith, which the book is brilliant, and it really does sort of bring God into mental and physical well-being. There is another book that I had before, which I would recommend to anybody that is any guy that is struggling at the moment. And it's called Positive Male Mind, and it's by Dr. Sean Davis and Andrew Kinder. And you can get that, I believe, on Amazon. It's very good. In ways, it's actually a bit similar to Dave Smith's book that we're studying at the moment.
Wellbeing book.
But there's practical tips to maintain good mental health. And Dr. Sean Davis is actually a local person as well. I think he's sort of around the Maidenhead area. So it's a very good book. And also the small groups that we're doing at the moment, the wellbeing series. I believe you get a book if you join one of those. So I definitely encourage everybody to join a small group that's doing the wellbeing course.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's finding community, isn't it? And I'd say to anyone listening, firstly, check out both of those books that Darren's mentioned, but also if you are a new dad, then go follow Who Let the Dads Out on Facebook. It's the Bracknell Who Let the Dads Out. And maybe they could drop you a message, Darren, if anyone's heard this and wants to talk to you or one of the team about your experience. Maybe they're going through something similar. Maybe it's not new dads, slightly older children, and they're struggling with their mental health. Would you and your team be happy to hear from anyone?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search for Who Let the Dads Out Bracknell and you'll find us. And we've got this Saturday coming, not this Saturday coming, 30th of January. We are doing a live storytelling, which is how we've taken the group online. Half an hour of stories for the kids, particularly for the age of like 0 to 5-year-olds, very much aimed at that sort of age group. And I think we've got a couple of guests reading this month, but I'm sure you'll hear at least one story from me, which and I apologise for poor reading, but I am dyslexic, and so this is actually something that filled me with fear at first, to do live storytelling. But by the grace of God, when I'm reading any kind of scripture, but also stories for this online Who Let the Dads Out, I don't seem to have any problem with reading.
Amazing.
And then
Really
after that's all done, I pick up a book and then I struggle again.
Oh, amazing. He's with you doing that. Oh, thank you for coming and chatting to us about such an important subject. Just one last question, quick fire kind of question about the theme of the journey we're on as parents. As you know, the podcast is called Are We Nearly There Yet? A common phrase on a long car journey with children. When you set out on your journey as a parent, Darren, we have touched on some of this today, but what would you have packed with you? What essential items would you pack that maybe you know about now that you maybe didn't know about then?
That's a good question. I think definitely books all the way through the process that we've had in the last 5 years. We've gathered lots of very good books, good help books. The best one of the best ones to prepare you is The Blissful Baby Expert by Lisa Clegg. Very, very important book to get as a new parent. Energy. I'll definitely be packing energy because it's amazing how much energy you need. And I think really it's just time, patience, and lots and lots of love.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Give my love to Becky and Gracie.
Will do. Thank you, Sonia, for having us.
No, thank you. Well, massive thank you to Darren for joining me in conversation this week. Such an important subject, men's mental health, all our mental health, of course. He recommended a couple of books there. So the first was Positive Male Mind by Dr. Sean Davis and Andrew Kinder, I'm not quite sure how you say that. And another one, Blissful Baby Expert by Lisa Clegg. And of course, the Wellbeing book, the God's Plan for Your Wellbeing by Dave Smith, that we're actually looking into as a whole church community at the moment at Kerith Community Church. It's not too late to get plugged into a small group for that. If you'd like to, check out our website, kerith.church. And who let the dads out? Why don't you go and give them a follow? The Bracknell group is on Facebook. Go and find them and give them a follow and encourage them as they create that important space for men to meet together. See you next week on Are We Nearly There Yet?